Into the Quick Out Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream here, John Impemba with Andrew Cooper on the Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm social channels. Today, Coop, you and I going to be breaking down some Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, some positional rankings, a little reaction to the NFL draft, and we'll recap our staff best ball draft that we did over on Underdog Fantasy on Monday, our post-NFL draft, best ball draft on Underdog Fantasy there. You see the little promo code there with the QR on the screen. If you haven't yet already signed up for Underdog Fantasy, go ahead, scan that QR code or go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog fantasy. Use promo code fantasy alarm. Get a 100% deposit match up to $100. You can start partaking in some of these best ball drafts that Coop, myself, and the rest of the Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports family are going to be partaking in over these next few months. Coop, it's been a pretty busy last couple of days for everybody here following that draft, huh?
Yeah, it's been wild. And that's the thing is that right now we're doing one show a week. Hopefully we get closer to the season. We're going to do more. But that's the thing is we have people that want Dynasty stuff. We have people that don't care about Dynasty. They're getting into best ball season. We're going to try and give you the best of both worlds. Half hour here. We're going to talk about the rookie rankings. We're going to do like a quick first round. We'll do super flex, tight end premium just to cover everything. And we'll do a quick John will pick one, I'll pick one all the way down. And then after that, we're going to look at an actual best ball draft we did with the Fantasy Alarm staff. So pretty sharp crew and servo. And so we're going to go through that, and then we'll give you some information there. So a little bit of something for everybody today, Johnny.
Yeah, we've got a couple articles been released these last few days, and you'll have a few more coming out over the next couple here, breaking down your Dynasty Fantasy Football positional rookie rankings here, Coop. We've had wide receivers and running backs posted so far over in Fantasy Alarm. You can find it there. You can go over the Reddit files there and go find Coop in the Reddit dungeons talking up some Dynasty rookie rankings for everybody out there as well. Why don't we dive into some of the things you got out there already, man? The running back article was dropped today. Surprise to nobody, Bijan Robinson is your number one Dynasty rookie running back. We kind of expected him to land with Atlanta during the NFL draft. All the Vegas odds were landing in that direction as well. Finally, official pick made. He is in Atlanta. What are your reactions to Bijan now as a Falcon?
Yeah, man. Some people say what you will about whether you like the pick. I truly understand from a real life NFL standpoint. People say 8 is too early for a running back. They have a short shelf life. You have to pick up their 5th-year option. It doesn't give you as much value when you pick up that 5th-year option. But this guy is a super mega star, and he landed at a spot where they love to run the football. He's going to have plenty of opportunity to catch passes as well. They have all these other guys. I mean, it's like, think about this team is so built to run the football. Not only did they bring back Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, they brought back Keith Smith, the fullback, traded for Jonnu Smith, but the two guys that are probably going to play most of snaps at wide receiver, Kyle Pitts and Drake London, are also monsters. Like those guys, that's the beauty of having guys that are 6'4", 6'6". These guys, this isn't Rondale Moore out there trying to block. Like these guys are going to be burying safeties. So I think Bijan could have a historic season. I'm taking him we'll talk about it later with the best ball draft. You'll see where I took him in that. But yeah, Bijan's my one overall in every format, including Superflex, honestly. Like he's just that good. So quick rundown of these and where I kind of feel good about them. Bijan, feel very good about. The next two guys, Jahmyr Gibbs and Zach Charbonnet, I kind of did some soul searching, posted a video on this, but I thought about Alvin Kamara and how he was a 3rd-round pick drafted to a backfield that had Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram was great at the time, and Adrian Peterson. That first year, Mark Ingram was the RB6. Like, he was excellent, 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Even then, Alvin Kamara had the talent. He finished RB3. These two guys, I think they're good enough that I'm willing to still go very high on them. So the Bijan Robinson tier of his own. I still have Jahmyr Gibbs and Zach Charbonnet pretty high, John. Are you scared away by the landing spot situation here? Yeah.
Listen, Jahmyr Gibbs, to me, now think about what's going on in Detroit and who's really there. They moved on from Swift. I know that they have Montgomery there, but to me, Gibbs is the more explosive player. I think he fits maybe their system a little bit better. He has that versatility, he has that quickness. So I'm not really worried about him coming in and being a guy that doesn't get the workload. I don't think you use a 1st-round pick like they did on Gibbs without intending on featuring him in their offense. And listen, it was never a production issue with Swift. It was a health issue. Right. If Jahmyr Gibbs is healthier than DeAndre Swift is, it slots into that offense the way they wanted to use Swift, and they use Montgomery maybe more in this bulldozer back role that we saw Williams in, but maybe they used Williams last year that much because there was no Swift. Gibbs could be a pretty strong fantasy asset. So now I'm not scared off of Gibbs. The Charbonnet thing, of course, that one's a little bit more concerning because they just used a draft pick last year on a rookie, Kenneth Walker, who looked great. It's not as if, Tyler Algier was a 6th-round pick, and everybody's like, well, why would they draft Bijan Robinson when Algier had a good rookie year? Well, because he was like a 5th or 6th-round pick. There's no draft capital investment.
Right.
They used an early-round pick on Walker last year, and he was good. So that one I'm a little bit more concerned about when it comes to like how he fits and what his role could be, because there is a back there that is seemingly more capable or as capable. So, but Gibbs for me is I am not afraid of that at all.
Yeah, with Charbonnet, though, from the early going, you can get a read from Pete Carroll's comments on, he was like, we love this guy for his pass catching ability, and he's going to do battle with Charbonnet for that role. And then he basically said, we think Charb can still catch the ball pretty well, so he might keep that role anyway. But that is where, Kenneth Walker catch the ball pretty well. That is where Kenneth Walker struggled a little bit last year. So I think that to me, it seems pretty clear. Kenneth Walker is going to be the starter. Zach Charbonnet is going to mix in on 3rd downs to start, and that's exactly how it started for Alvin Kamara. They mixed him in on those plays. He proved that he deserves to play a lot, and we've seen a few different times where teams have had multiple 1st-round RBs. It doesn't happen all the time, but James White was an RB1 at times. Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman. So I've seen it before. It's very possible. So I'm sticking with that. The next tier here.
It's funny because the size for Charbonnet is much bigger than Walker is, right? So to think of him as like the 3rd down change of pace guy, it almost feels like those roles would be reversed a little bit. But to your point, like Adrian Peterson was kind of on his way down. Ingram, we know, was in the middle of his career there. Kamara certainly had it felt like a clearer path to being the guy once he kind of showed that. I think it's going to be pretty competitive for Walker and Charbonnet this year. So maybe we'll be wrong. We've seen Pete Carroll sign Matt Flynn and then decide, you know what, that's fine. We paid you all that money to be on the bench. We're going to go with Russell Wilson. He's the better player here. Charbonnet could go into camp, look better than Walker, and that's the guy, and there they go.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Patriots. They drafted Sony Michel in the 1st round, which means he had a 5th-round option. Then they drafted Damian Harris the very next round, meaning that his rookie contract overlapped with Sony Michel's if they wanted to pick up that option. Damian Harris still emerged. And then they drafted Ramondre Stevenson right on top of that, and Ramondre Stevenson still emerged. So I think that there's possibility that, if they end up with 2 very, really good backs, maybe sometimes you trade one. Anyway, we got 20 more minutes to cover Dynasty. We had to move on here. Devin A-Chain, we love his speed. Think he's going to be a Raheem Mostert replacement. The size is the question. So not sure if he's going to get a full workload. That's why he's kind of in this next tier for me. You got the Bijan tier, Gibbs and Charbonnet. Then I go A-Chain. Next, Kendre Miller. He had 2 visits with the Patriots. They liked his skill set. Ended up with New Orleans. And, he's 20 years old, not even 21 yet. And the 2 backs they have there, Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, will both be 28 going into the season. Could be a suspension for Alvin, so he could play right away. And then the last guy I put in this group is Tajay Spears. And I got to ask you, John, we've played this game before. We've played the game of Derrick Henry is getting too old, or they're going to bring in a back that will catch passes to complement him. Are we playing it again with Spears, John?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem again here I have is like the Spear size. He's not a backup to Henry when it comes to the style of offense they're going to want to run, right? He's 5'9", 185, right? That's not Derrick Henry, 6'4", 240, right? Bulldozer. Right. So, my issues with the running backs in Tennessee behind Derrick Henry these past few years is that nobody's really been someone that I could be like, all right, this is the clear handcuff to Derrick Henry if something goes down to Derrick Henry. I don't think we have those answers necessarily. So, sure, they drafted Spears. I think that they're going to probably profile him a little bit more as a guy that can, maybe catch the ball a little bit. Like they have a lot of those smaller backs that they've taken in the past few years to be behind Henry. But there's a reason why those guys don't stick, and they keep trying to draft these running backs behind Derrick Henry. I'm not totally convinced that Spears is an impact player, this season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we see you guys in the chat, Meat Mansion, the crew. We're going to answer those questions. I see a couple questions on wide receivers. We're going to get to wide receivers next. Yeah, so
You
I
see chat
feel
questions? Where are they? Are they over on
those
YouTube?
are on the app. Yeah, we're trying to figure out a way to get it integrated with the YouTube question. So
Yeah,
I'll call out any good ones over there.
sure.
Yeah, he said Zach Sauvignon Blanc, which is a great comment.
Yeah.
Yes. So Zach, glass of Chardonnay. Okay, yeah, we have next after that, Roshan Johnson. I like the player. He's kind of a mystery box because he was behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. But the problem for me is he goes to the Bears, where they plan to have a mobile quarterback in Justin Fields moving forward. We saw mathematically that mobile quarterbacks do not target the running back as much as their pocket passing counterparts. I mean, the
Lufa
Bears,
agrees with you too, man. She's just
I can
really
hear
worried
her.
about
Yeah,
Roshan Johnson there
she's
in
worried.
Chicago, man.
She's good. I mean, I don't know. Do you think she's saying that Roshan's got that dog in him? I
It's
think
very
that might
possible.
be.
Listen, he's a
Yeah.
between the tackles guy, right? A lot of power in that system, and sometimes like you need that a little bit when you have, the mobile quarterbacks. You want a guy that can sort of complement that speed and defenses the way they kind of have to soften up a little bit and worry about the edges. And you get a power back like Johnson that can kind of run up there in a soft middle and maybe break some runs there. So I took him in our best ball draft. I took him later in the rounds, obviously, where he's going in best ball. But, for me, just sort of looking at the competition there, Donta Foreman's been good, right? But he's not a guy that should ever like be a blocker for a job, right? So, I think the fact that you look at the running back situation there in Chicago, the running backs that they have, Khalil Herbert has had opportunities to be the lead back. He's looked good in some matchups, hasn't looked so great. Other times when Montgomery would be healthy, they would go right back to Montgomery. Montgomery's not there anymore. Herbert is there, but they go in, they signed Donta Foreman, they draft Roshan Johnson. So, like, is that a tell on what they ultimately think of Khalil Herbert here? So, to me, I think if you're drafting a running back in this system, Roshan sort of makes the most sense to me, just kind of given the situation that there's there in Chicago. But to your point, the running back, Justin Fields is an elite mobile quarterback. Touchdowns could go his way running wise. The yardage could go their way. Not everybody's going to be Miles Sanders, right? Who ran for a monster season with all those touchdowns with Jalen Hurts. I don't know if that's necessarily what we're going to see out of the backfield in Chicago. You're muted up, Coop.
Muted up because the dog is barking. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts has the most rushing touchdowns of any player over the last 2 years with like 28. So that's a concern there. Let's wrap this position up. Chase Brown, we liked the player, didn't go very early, ended up going to the Bengals. Could take over eventually, but the Zach Taylor basically reiterated that Joe Mixon's going to be there, so he's got to wait a little bit. Evan Hull is basically a pure pass catching back, goes to the Colts, which now is not a good spot for pass catching backs with Anthony Richardson. Izzy Abanikanda, we liked him, but ended up
bad landing spot for him too.
Yeah, bad landing spot. And then, the rest of these guys, Zach Evans, Dwayne McBride, Deuce Vaughn, Eric Gray, facing pretty uphill battles to starting spots. So let's move over to wide receiver. A lot, it kind of went the way we thought, and also not exactly. I mean, 4 guys back to back in the first round.
Right.
The guys that we liked, like it ended up being a lot of the guys that we do like, but did not expect that happening.
Not only that, did they not expect it to happen? They went in landing spots we weren't expecting them to go to, right? Jackson Smith and Jigba goes to Seattle.
Right.
Did not expect him to have to deal with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right, 4 targets. Jordan Addison goes to Minnesota. Now he's got to deal with Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, who forgetting the best wide receiver in football right now. So Quentin Johnson goes to the Chargers. Didn't expect him to have to deal with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So a lot of these top guys all of a sudden now have legitimate competition for not just number 1 targets, but number 2 targets on their team as well.
Yeah, so Jackson Smith and Jigba, I still like him number 1 for Dynasty. For redraft or best ball, I actually might consider people that have the opportunity. Like Jordan Addison probably has an easier path to a full-time snap share at the very least. I think JSN probably ends up playing slot early with Metcalf and Lockett playing full-time snap share. So I rank them JSN, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers for Dynasty. But in redraft or best ball, I might go for Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers based on opportunity. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have some combination of those 4 as their top guys. The question is what happens next. For me, I like a guy that we liked pre-draft, Jonathan Mingo. I have him at 5. That's the one ranking out of this crew that I've gotten some pushback. Some people say that he doesn't really separate well. He only got drafted because he's one of the few bigger guys here. On the flip side, there's a number of people like myself that like that profile, that like that style of play, and that think that he can, you know, get in with Bryce Young, the number one overall pick, right away, and be a guy that
Yep.
produces right away. And now he's in an amazing situation where
One of my favorite spots for that
yeah,
reason. Exactly. Listen, you get a rookie quarterback. He's got to go through rookie training camp. He's got to go through rookie mini camp. He's got to through all of these things. And right next to him is going to be their second round wide receiver that they drafted, the 6'2", 220-pound guy who ran a 4.45. And you tweeted out earlier today about Steve Smith Sr. Producing content and commenting about how much he likes this kid. And I don't think that can go understated. Sort of that chemistry that these guys can develop. What was one of the things we talked about with Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney? Why did they have that connection? Because Mooney was with him, Fields, running hundreds of routes, understanding each other, figuring out, getting that chemistry. And then as soon as it was Fields' time, Allen Robinson was dust, and it was all Darnell Mooney because they had that connection. Mingo and Young might be roommates at this point, right? Just like getting each other to go. And then you look at the Carolina Panthers offense. You took Adam Thielen in that draft. Right after you, I took Jonathan Mingo, 1-2 there. There's no real competition for Mingo. If he goes out there and outplays DJ Chark or outplays Adam Thielen or whoever, I know they play different spots in the offense, but like there's a real opportunity for Mingo and Young just to meld together and be that spot.
yeah, absolutely. So Mingo, I'm in on people. Some people out there, I'd love to hear in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. Let me know why that's a terrible pick. I like him at 5. After that, Jaden Reed. For me, I personally, I'm a numbers guy, right? I look at the hit rate of guys in the second and third round wide receivers versus fourth, fifth, and sixth, and I really have a hard time ranking very many guys from the fourth, fifth, from the day 3 over the second day guys. So my next group of rankings is going to be Jaden Reed, a guy who Austin from campus to Canton, he was a flag plant guy for him. So getting second round draft capital to the Packers where there are targets available, I really, I appreciate his input. I like that spot a lot. Marvin Mims, another guy that I put in this tier. This tier for me is 3 guys: Jaden Reed, Marvin Mims, Josh Downs. Those are the guys. I trust the talent for evaluation for Josh Downs. Marvin Mims, this is a new regime. One of their first picks, took him in the second round. I know it's crowded right now, but there were already rumors about them moving some of those pass catchers. So I think with a guy like that, you trust the capital, you trust Sean Payton, and go for him. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually kind of interested. Howard Bender took this player. He's talked about him a little bit, and then Britt Flynn does her best ball article earlier today. Cover that. It was Rice going to Kansas City. I know you have him in sort of like right your next tier below when you're looking at offenses and where there's paths to playing time, right? Like, yeah, Kadarius Toney's there. Sure, they took Sky Moore last year. We know Travis Kelce is the number 1, but there's no like Tyreek Hill. There's no, Marquez Valdes-Scantling isn't really holding anybody back if he's still in Kansas City, right? Like, so there's a path, I think, in Kansas City for somebody to jump up and be that number 1 guy. And we know Patrick Mahomes doesn't discriminate. He's thrown to Justin Watson for crying out loud last season, much to our frustration. So, maybe Rice is someone that comes in here and steps in.
The problem with the doesn't discriminate is that he really does spread the ball around a lot. And you hear the Chiefs brass talk about Rashee Rice, and they're like, yeah, he can do a lot of the things that Juju Smith-Schuster does, which sounds like they want him to try and replace the production of Juju Smith-Schuster. And I look at that and wasn't amazing. I mean, it was a lot of low A dot stuff. At times he got a decent amount of targets.
He was banged up last year too.
Yeah,
I don't know how
I guess
much
that's true.
I don't know how much that had to impact what maybe he was capable of doing on the field, his separation, with the injury there. So yeah, I would at least keep that in the back of my mind when sort of evaluating the Juju season.
Yeah, and the thing with that's so tough about this range, right, is that like you only get so many rookie picks unless you traded away everything and you have like the whole draft. You only get to pick 1 guy. So just the nature of me ranking Josh Downs ahead of Rashee Rice means I'm probably not going to get a lot of Rashee Rice.
Right.
And that's fine with me because that's my move. If you look at my rankings and you say, hey, you know what, I'm taking the second round pick Rashee Rice over Josh Downs, I'd say, you know what, absolutely, go right ahead. Like, pick the guys that you want. So never look at somebody else's rankings and say, I have to draft it that way. If you don't care about anybody, then sure, go off my rankings. But I have no problem in this range if you say, hey, you know what? I like this guy a little better, because just that small spot, that small flip, that determines who you're going to get in your
Yeah.
draft. So make sure you're very cognizant of that with the rankings. Is that like sometimes, and this is why I don't like when people go way against the grain with their rankings, right? Like if you have somebody out there that says, I have Jalen Hyatt at third overall behind uh, behind uh, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? You rank Jalen Hyatt third overall. Anybody that's following those rankings is going to have Jalen Hyatt in every single
Right.
league, whether they pick at 3, whether they pick at 9, right? Like that's the one guy they're taking at 6, 5, 8. So be careful. I don't love that idea unless you really truly are sure.
You haven't mentioned Jalen Hyatt yet. Obviously, he gets taken third round by the Giants. He was the Blitnikoff Award winner here. What are your thoughts? You did the YouTube short you can go find over at Fantasy Line, kind of discussing past Blitnikoff winners here, and 2 of them are in this draft class, Addison and then Hyatt, but you have them very different in where they're ranked. What are your thoughts on Hyatt's landing spot?
The reason I have him here is I think the rest of these guys are fairly safe. Like I look at Josh Downs and I'm like, he's a slot monster. He's going to play slot. He's going to contribute. Jalen Hyatt, my concern is that he's a speedster, and I was worried that a team might use him as a field stretcher. Which, unless you're going to be dynamic like Tyreek Hill and actually develop all these extra routes, T.Y. Hilton's an example of a field stretcher that developed enough routes to be fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
If he goes to this team and they have all these slot guys and Darren Waller, I worry that they might just use him to take the top off, like Tyquan Thornton with the Patriots last year, or like KJ Hamler. And KJ Hamler was a second round pick, and he's a player that helps that team because he takes the top off. But is he doing anything fancy? Not really. That's the
Right.
downside. The upside is that he was the best wide receiver, according to the people that vote in all of college football last year. So that's why I have him here. After the guys I feel are safe, I'm willing to take a stab on Jalen Hyatt. And then we get into this next group where I think they're risky and I'm not sure about the upside. So Jalen Hyatt to me is kind of in a tier of his own.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fine. Any other guys as you move down? You don't have to go through the whole list here. You can find that over on Fantasy Alarm. Any other notables, just like spotlights you want to have
Yeah,
when it comes to these wide receivers?
there are. So I'm taking the rest of the guys that went in the third round. So Tank Dell, Cedric Tillman, Michael Wilson going to the Cardinals, where they potentially could be trading DeAndre Hopkins, and Zach Ertz could start the season banged up. He could get targets right away. So I'm taking all the day 1 and 2 guys first, and then you kind of just have to pick from the day 3 guys, because we're talking about now you're getting into the third round of your rookie draft. You just get to pick one of these guys. The guys I like are I like Puka Nacua. I liked his profile coming in. He basically led. He was like second of all wide receiver in yards per route run his senior year, which is what we like to see. I like Tyler Scott. He's a pretty solid player. And then I'm willing to take a stab on Keyshawn Butte based on how the Patriots do use players like that. If Juju isn't the long-term answer, maybe he takes that role. But after that, you're just kind of throwing darts. Xavier Hutchinson, interesting a little bit. But let's move on to the QBs and tight ends, and then we'll do a quick first round mock.
Sure. You have Anthony Richardson as your number 1 quarterback here, Dynasty rankings. I have to assume that is just the rushing upside that he brings to the table, the athleticism, and when you're talking ultimate ceilings, probably the reason you got him 1, right?
There's 2 schools of thought, John. There's a school of thought of it doesn't matter if they aren't a full-time quarterback, in
Sure.
which case if that's your thought process, then you take Bryce Young, because he's the one that's most like virtually guaranteed to have a job and be the starter long term, in my opinion, or CJ Stroud as well. And then there's a school of thought that says the hit rate on quarterbacks in the first round, even at the very top, is still only like 50%. I might as well shoot for the highest upside, in which case you take Anthony Richardson. That's kind of my school of thought. So I have Richardson at 1. If you want to take Bryce Young because you're a conservative type player, or it's a super flex league and all you care about is getting starters, then maybe you take one of the other guys. But I have Richardson at 1, John. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, again, I understand where you're coming from here, and I've always been of the school of thought when it comes to drafting my quarterbacks is that I want a guy that has that mobility for, right? And because that just increases his ceiling. If he develops into a good passer, not even a great passer, just a good passer, and he runs for 800 yards and 5+ touchdowns, he's your QB1, right? Like we just saw that out of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had a good passing year. He didn't have a great passing year. He had a good passing year. But he had an elite rushing year. Daniel Jones didn't have a good passing year, but he had a great running year, and that allowed him to be a top 10 quarterback. We've seen that with Lamar Jackson. We've seen that with Kyler Murray. These guys with that mobility, they don't have to have great passing years to have great fantasy QB years because of their mobility. So it's not to say Young and Stroud don't have some mobility to them, but Richardson has that 1,000-yard Cam Newton type, not to make the comparison, but the Cam Newton level of running ability. So it makes complete sense to me to want to take that chance there on Richardson. If you want to be safer, you probably take the quarterbacks below him. But, if you're going upside, especially if you're in a dynasty super flex league, right? Like that's a league potential winning pick that you're making.
Exactly. And I rank these guys all the way out to 14 for the article. Check it out over on Fantasy Alarm. It's going to be up. That one is going to be up shortly. The RBs and wide receivers are up. The QB1 goes up today. So I have Richardson, Bryce Young, Stroud. They went all within the top 4 picks. They're kind of in their own group. Then I have Will Levis. To me, he's a Jay Cutler type guy. Maybe have some attitude issues, some mechanic issues, but Jay Cutler played for a long time, even without fixing his mechanics, just chucking it off his back foot. So he's got opportunity. We like Hendon Hooker. He went in the 3rd round. After that, you have to just take, if you're going to in Superflex, go for anybody. You just have to take a stab on somebody you think that can play at some point. For me, I like the idea of taking a stab on Clayton Tune. And the thought process there is that he got drafted by the Cardinals. It's a new regime. They didn't go crazy reaching for him. They took him in the 5th. But if he can win that backup job, we've heard that Kyler Murray is going to miss up to half the season. In Superflex, if you can get a guy from day 3 that plays at all, you might be able to flip that guy or even use the guy. So that's what I'm doing. At that point, like it's so like you're splitting hairs between the 4th and 5th and 6th round guys. I don't really care. I'm going to take the guy that might start. And the other part of it is that roster spots are so valuable in these leagues. I'll take Clayton Tune, and if he doesn't earn that starting job week 1, drop City. I'll just drop him.
The draft capital investment you're going to have to put on him isn't going to be all that crazy anyway. So
exactly, and you can get the answers right away. Do they think he's good enough to play ball? Turns out he doesn't by week 1, and they're starting Colt McCoy. Good.
You talk the strategy all the time. Lottery tickets versus scratch tickets, right?
Scratch ticket, yeah.
And that's what this is. This is a scratch ticket. You scratch it right away. If you won, if you didn't, you throw it away. If you did, cash it in. So
instead of sitting with Stetson Bennett on my bench for like 3 years and he never plays and I drop him when he's like 28 years old, without ever playing, it's just like that doesn't appeal to me in the least bit. So let's move on to tight end. Then we'll do a quick first round.
Sure. Go ahead. I mean, Dalton Kincaid, first round pick here. And then, we talked about this tight end class and we talked about Vegas odds and they thought there'd be a few tight ends going in the first round. We ended up getting 3 in the 2nd, 1 in the 1st. You're the tight end guru, man. Break it down for us.
We got even more in the 2nd, actually. There's 5 in the 2nd. There's 3 I like in the 2nd. So for me, Dalton Kincaid in the first round to go to the Bills to basically be the Bills slot wide receiver. That's a wheels up situation for fantasy football. Could be one of the few guys that has fantasy relevance as a rookie. So pretty interesting there. The next guy is a guy that no secret that I was a huge fan of this offseason. So when he went in the 2nd round before Michael Mayer, I had to put Sam Laporta as my tight end too. If you want to have Michael Mayer as yours because you think that he can be, he's going to be a long-term starter and you like the safety of having a 2-way tight end, go for it. But Sam Laporta for me is a guy that could play wide receiver immediately for the Lions with Jameson Williams suspended, right? So it's like Marvin Jones, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. Laporta could be lining up out wide, split out wide in the slot, all over the place. So I'm really excited about that guy.
We talked about them needing to find a Hawkinson replacement because they had a 0 basically a tight end last year, except for that random like Zylstra like 3 touchdown game or whatever it was. But Laporta definitely a very interesting spot there for him now.
For sure. And then for like everyone's talking about how great this tight end class is, how awesome it is, but it's a great NFL tight end class. Some of these guys I'm just not super excited for fantasy. Then there's basically 4 that I really like for both fantasy in dynasty and for short term. And Luke Musgrave, because he was a bit of a wild card, like complete wild card, skier that didn't really play a lot in college because he got hurt. But him going at pick 42 in the second round to the Packers, which is the landing spot that has the most available targets, a new young QB that's going to pick who his favorite targets are, that's appealing to me. So I'm taking Luke Musgrave there. And right after Luke Musgrave in my rankings, I actually have the other tight end that the Packers took, Tucker Kraft. We've seen this in the past where the Baltimore Ravens went and they took Hayden Hurst in the first round, and then they took Mark Andrews. And Hayden Hurst on paper was the more athletic tight end, just like Luke Musgrave. He was also a bit of a wild card because he went and played minor league baseball for the Pirates, right? And it was just like, they were like, hey, let's take a shot on this crazy athletic guy, and then we'll take another guy after, see who wins the job. Well, we all know how that went. So right. I like the idea of Musgrave first, just like I originally had Hayden Hurst ahead of Mark Andrews. But I think it's worth taking a stab on Tucker Kraft if you have a spot just to see how it pans out. We've seen it before with Vernon, the San Francisco 49ers took Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker in the same draft. Vernon Davis was good, started for a long time. Delaney Walker was buried for years, but turns out Delaney Walker also very good. At 30 years old, was a top 5 tight end. So that's where I'm at. After that, I'm just going after the athletic guys. So I'm actually skipping guys like Luke Schoonmaker, who only broke 2 tackles in college, didn't really show us a whole lot. Brenton Strange, more of a blocking tight end for Penn State. He's, to me, like more of a Drew Sample type guy who also got drafted in the second round, just not going there. Give me Josh Wiley next and Will Mallory next. Give me these guys that have the crazy athletic profiles next. Personally, I'm probably not even drafting a lot of tight ends. After those top 4, I'll probably just wait and then pick guys off waivers and throw them on my taxi squad. So that's how that shook out for us. Anybody else notable you wanted to mention, John? Just anybody?
No, I mean, we talked a lot about Darnell Washington falling during the draft. Had the knee, maybe the knee worry. That's what people were talking about. But then there were reports coming out that maybe it was a little overblown that the knee was a problem, and that's why he fell. He ends up landing. Is it Pittsburgh? Right, was the landing spot for him?
It's brutal spot.
So I mean, if he's healthy, he's a very interesting red zone play. Like, I have to imagine they look at his size and when they get in the red area, they're like, all right, this guy's an absolute monster. Like, we can just have him box somebody out and just throw jump balls to him and utilize that. Or to your point, he maybe profiles better as a blocker in the NFL. And now all of a sudden he's blowing up guys on the edge for Najee Harris or somebody to run behind. So he's an interesting red zone player for me from both of those perspectives, but we have to see how many times Pittsburgh actually gets in the red zone. So
yeah, I'm thinking more of like a best ball type guy because of that. I mean, we've seen it with Donald Parham, who's also like 6'7". They just, in the red zone, like you said, John, they say, hey, you know what? Just send everybody and chuck it up to this guy if you have to. We've seen it with Dwayne Allen. Remember Dwayne Allen for the Colts when they had the Colby Fleener, Dwayne Allen, and Dwayne Allen scored with Andrew Luck for like 8 touchdowns. Yeah. But like the question is when, right? Like you don't know. And the games when he doesn't score a touchdown, he gives you a straight up 0, right? Yeah. So that's the scary thing with Darnell Washington. Not to mention somebody, I forget, it might have been Mike Tomlin said, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy had a license plate that said 6 O-linemen on it.
Yeah,
I don't like the sound of that. Not at all. For the very late guys, we're still stashing Zach Kuntz, who went to the Jets. Throw him in a taxi squad spot. Elijah Higgins, we didn't like the landing spot, to be honest. The Dolphins, they don't have a spot. They didn't even use Mike Gesicki, so why are they going to use Elijah Higgins? But I'm still going to taxi squad him. But yeah, that's the breakdown there, John. Let's do a quick 1-round rookie super flex tight end premium draft here. So, John, I'll give you the first pick. You can take the honors.
Where are we going? 10 picks here?
Let's do 12.
12. Okay. I mean, I'll just go Bijan first. It feels like that's the obvious selection.
Pretty good pick. And that's the question. Some people are going to draft for need. I would not be. I know Felix Sharp of Campus to Canton has been pounding the table, banging the drum that Anthony Richardson should be the 1 overall in Superflex. Fine. Do what you got to do. If you really desperately need a quarterback, do that. I think Bijan Robinson is the best player, so I'm taking him 1. You already took him, so I'll take Anthony. I'll take Anthony Richardson. Super flex.
Yeah, since it's super flex, I'll go Bryce Young. I'll take him third here.
Good. I'll take CJ Stroud, and then we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Okay.
5 is when the draft starts.
Yeah, 5 is when the draft starts. I'll go Jordan Addison.
Jordan, I love that pick, man. You're going to take him over Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're going for the production right away.
Yeah, going for the production right away. I believe in the quarterback a little bit more as well. I don't know if we can get Geno to repeat what we got going on there.
Yeah, I think it seems pretty clear the target's going to be highly consolidated. KJ Osborne, not. I think he's just going to maintain his current role, which he's fine in. And Kevin O'Connell loves his 3 wide receiver sets, so KJ Osborne will play 75-80% of the snaps, but you don't pay for Jordan Addison to not play him right away. He was the
Right.
2021 Biletnikoff winner. So this guy, young breakout age already. So I do love that pick. I'll just take Jackson Smith and Jigba and stash him, hope for that Chris Godwin timeline, maybe a little faster than Chris Godwin. The second
Okay.
year breakout.
So then let's see. You said it's tight end premium. I guess I'll just steal your guy and go Dalton Kincaid and
Oh, you crafty dog.
make it go there. You know.
That's the thing about tight end premium is that you if he does play wide receiver for the Bills and he is as good as we think he is, you just got a souped up superpower weapon in this format. So pretty good there. Did you take Jordan Addison at 5?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess in that case, I'll be the one that takes Jahmyr Gibbs. I for a second I thought that Jahmyr Gibbs had already been taken. I would have taken him over
Yeah.
Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a full. I think right away in full PPR, he's going to be valuable, especially with the lack of wide receivers they're going to have with Jameson Williams out to start the season. Jahmyr Gibbs right away, I think, is going to be productive sooner than people think. So I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs there.
All right. I'll go Zay Flowers. I think he has a better chance to produce this year.
Yeah, I mean, with the Todd Monken air raid offense, he's going to be in that mix right away. So they need 3 to 4 wide receivers. Even with Odell and Bateman, he's going to play right away. So
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good pick. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to take the talent of Zach Charbonnet, even though he's not and this is kind of going against how I actually have him ranked. I was leaning on Quentin Johnson here, but I like Charbonnet. I already took a guy like JSN that might have to wait a little bit. I like Charbonnet to get that pass catching role right away. And if they're splitting it evenly, and one guy's going to be the Aaron Jones, and one guy's going to be the former Jamal Williams or the AJ Dillon, give me the Aaron Jones. So if Zach Charbonnet is going to get the pass work, that's what I want.
Yeah, I like that. And then I'll double tap tight end. I'll go Sam Laporta here.
Oh, so you're skipping Quentin Johnson, taking the Sam Laporta.
I mean, you said tight end premium. You're the one setting the rules here. So
it is tight end premium, man. And again, he could be another guy that just is a wide receiver. You can start at the tight end spot right away. Beautiful thing. I'll take Quentin Johnson. Somebody has to take him. He, went to the Chargers. He might have to wait a little bit with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen there, but he's going to play. I think he immediately passes Josh Palmer. You don't take a guy in the first round if you're not going to use him. So that's it. That's our top 12. Pretty solid. John.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little best ball fantasy for everybody. How's that sound, Coop?
Yeah, let's get that up. Everyone's talked Dynasty to death. You got your drafts this week. We're going to have all the articles up. So if you got your draft this weekend, all the articles there with the rankings. I think we're just going to post the straight rankings as well, John.
We're going to get the rankings up on site as well. You can go to fantasyalarm.com. You can click on the NFL tab. You'll see that drop down there, and you'll have Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings right there for all of you to take a look at. Those will be up probably a little bit later in the day after the stream. We'll get it all set up and posted for everybody.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's bring up the draft board here. This is the best ball fantasy football draft that we did the other day. We're live here on the Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm social channels. Hopefully you all tuned in. It's just we drafted, gave our reactions. Coop here, first round selection. Any surprising to you? I did the draft write-up recap, which you can find over at Fantasy Alarm. And I noticed, we were a little bit different from what the actual ADPs are right now over on Underdog. It's been very wide receiver heavy going on. And our first 2 picks in this draft were wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. In total, as you see on the board there, we had 6 wide receivers go in the first round. If you look at current ADPs, I actually think it's like 8 wide receivers are going in the first round over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, 3 wide receivers, half-point PPR over there. Maybe skewing some of that as well, but the years of just like 10 running backs going in the first round, it seems like we're not there anymore.
Those were my favorite times in fantasy football. Now, the thing, I guess now it leaves a lot more room for analysis. Back, I can only imagine being a fantasy analyst in like 2002, where you're just like, hey, just draft any starting running back and you'll be fine. Like even Thomas Jones was running for like 1,400 yards,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
it didn't matter, right? Like and it was so much easier to handcuff back then. It was literally like the Chiefs. Priest Holmes gets every single carry. Larry Johnson gets 2, and then if Priest Holmes gets hurt, Larry Johnson gets
Right.
400 carries. Like that was the golden age of handcuffing as well. Now, so with the split backfields and stuff, it's kind of but you have to make a decision. Like with the split backfields, there's only so many every down backs. So those go really quickly. So
Yeah.
tough calls. For me personally, I look at this Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, 1-2. Perfect. That's how I would do it. Doesn't matter. Uh, I'm not taking Travis Kelce at 3, like Servo did. I'm taking Christian McCaffrey. That's my personal. I mean, he was the RB4 on the Panthers during his time there. During his time on the 49ers, he was the RB2,
Yeah.
right? This guy's super mega star. That's only behind Austin Eckler. So I'm taking McCaffrey there. I don't know about you, John.
Yeah, listen, I took McCaffrey 1 overall in a lot of leagues last year.
I know you did.
I took him over Jonathan Taylor, and I thought I understood the quote unquote injury risk, but you and I beat that drum to death. Where we're not sitting here to project injuries. Every year a guy gets hurt, a guy doesn't get hurt. McCaffrey stayed relatively healthy. Who got hurt? Jonathan Taylor got hurt, right? The man who never missed practice all the way going back to Pee Wee football. Well, he got hurt, so.
And I'll give you your flowers on this, John. Somebody has to. I saw you take Austin Eckler
I did.
over Jonathan Taylor. I think I actually saw you take Austin Eckler first overall in one.
I
Did you
did.
not?
And
Yeah.
I took him in the Raz Bowl.
Yes, the Raz Bowl.
I took Austin Eckler 101. I've taken Austin Eckler 101 in a few BB10 drafts that we did. And my reasoning was for the same thing that panned out. I'm like, he had what I felt like was a down pass catching year 2 years ago. And I was like, listen, if he just gets back to what he is capable of catching the football, the running and his running and touchdowns are kind of going to be there for him. But if he increases his PPR value, then he's a surefire number 1. That's exactly what happened. So yeah, listen, I was high on CMC. I was high on Austin Eckler over Jonathan Taylor last year. I took them both. I had no Jonathan Taylor shares. I'm not saying that to be like, haha, like right. you suckers, you got the injured running back. I just ranked those 2 running backs higher than Jonathan Taylor.
It was part of the process, And the thing is, they had Joe Lombardi, this guy, like nonstop. Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton. I went back to look at some of their other years because people are like, oh well, if you have Austin Eckler, you throw it to him. If you have Alvin Kamara, you throw it to him. I went back to like 2014, where Joe Lombardi was calling the plays for the Lions and Sean Payton was calling the plays for the Saints. Joe Lombardi was second in the league in targets to the running back with 168, and Sean Payton was third, throwing to like Pierre Thomas and PT Cruiser, those guys like Mark. I think Ingram might have been there. Like it didn't matter with him. It doesn't matter with these guys. Like that's their offense, and that's why this year, for me personally, Austin Eckler, he's still a first round pick, but with Joe Lombardi gone to the Broncos and Kellen Moore coming in, a guy that likes to push it down the field, and now they have more weapons. I don't know if Austin Eckler is a 100 target guy, but he's still a guy that's going to get his share of targets.
Yeah, no, and it would be dumb to not utilize his best skill set. Now we see coaches be dumb all the time. Let's just hope that just isn't the case, knowing what that offense is. So Saquon Barkley in the first round. Last year he fell out of it, bounced back, healthy, looked good. Dayball offense here. Do you think that he is someone that may find himself even moving further up the first round as sort of the offseason moves?
Yeah, I think especially once I think they're going to come to terms on a long-term deal because like right now he's saying that he's not going to play,
right.
Which, feels like an empty threat, but maybe he won't play. And you have to have that in the back of your mind. But once he does, I think people are going to get that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, okay, they believe in this guy long-term and he's here long-term and vibes are good. And he's Saquon Barkley. And now I wonder if maybe he'll leapfrog Jonathan Taylor. Now I took Bijan Robinson as the second running back off the board. Are you taking Saquon or Bijan? Where are you at, John? Or Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, listen, I probably lean Barkley over the other 2. Again, I worry about Jonathan Taylor because the offense again feels very unknown, right? There's just, if it's bad quarterbacking and their offensive line wasn't that great last year. They're right in the middle of the pack. Quentin Nelson had one of his worst seasons that he's had as a pro to this point. There's some potential down there, I think, for Jonathan Taylor that I worry a little bit about. Bijan sort of is in a similar spot in terms of like, I wonder how good the offense is going to be, but they had a really good offensive line. If you look at PFF rankings last year, Arthur Smith is slowly like bringing together the offense that he ran in Tennessee to the point you mentioned they traded for Jonnu Smith, who was this tight end in Tennessee. It was Jonnu Smith, right? So like, they sort of reformulating an offensive plan. They have a year two quarterback who has some mobility behind him. I think that Bijan Robinson is an interesting talent, but he's not one that I think I'm willing to draft ahead of Barkley or even ahead of Austin Eckler personally. So
then you're
that's
never
kind of
going to
where
get
I'm at.
because his ADP right now is RB2 on Underdog. The ADP right now goes it goes McCaffrey, Bijan RB2, Jonathan Taylor RB3, Austin Eckler RB4, Saquon RB5. So but you don't have to have Bijan. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to do a lot of these best ball drafts. I'll have Bijan exposure. So I feel in this particular spot, like if I was on the clock and this was the only draft I was doing, Bijan would not be my selection. I don't want to go out there and be like, I'm not drafting Bijan Robinson at all. There are a lot of people that will be like, well, I wouldn't take him. I have this person ranked. And then you go look at their underdog exposure. It's like, you have 25% Bijan. It's like, well, I got to get my exposure. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not drafting Bijan Robinson. But if I was in one draft and I was on the clock and Bijan was there and Barkley was there and Eckler was there, I'm taking the other two backs over Bijan Robinson.
Exactly. Yeah. Your big hometown league, maybe you don't get crazy like that.
Right.
But got to remember, this isn't like with Rashad Penny when he was the first back drafted. That was a different story. He was drafted towards the end of the first round.
Yeah.
These guys, like when Zeke goes 4 and when Saquon goes where he goes, usually it's pretty safe deal.
Oh, yeah. He's for sure going to get all the work. And Algier looked good at the end of that year, 100%. I just wonder what the ceiling is to pay off that. Like, what does he have to do to be the RB2 5th overall pick?
Yeah.
That I just don't know, right? I don't know if they're going to, as a rookie, if he comes out and gives you that monster year like we saw Barkley do as a rookie, or Jonathan Taylor once he finally got the reins handed to him there, the second half of that season. That's where my worry comes in a little bit with Bijan. But we not denying the talent argument. I think he's an absolute stud.
Second for those that are just because we have it up on the screen here, for those that joined us on YouTube, for those joining us on the podcast just listening, here's the first round. It was Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Travis Kelce, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Tyreek Hill. Those are the top 6. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp. Fairly chalk. Cooper Kupp, honestly, in ADP goes earlier.
Yeah.
He goes earlier in ADP, and I don't know. But where you at with Cooper Kupp, man? We know he's amazing. It's a matter of what Matthew Stafford looks
fell in our draft, and I think sometimes we talk about this too when you're drafting sort of with the quote unquote like industries. You get maybe a better idea of the feel of where players are going. So you look at current underdog ADP, and Cooper Kupp's the top 5 pick. You go into sort of an industry draft, and now he's going 12, and does that start to move his ADP back as more content comes out? We all know more content comes out. These like fade draft articles get written. These podcasts, these shows are done. And then we start shaping. I'm not going to say that we do a lot, but like we start putting out their content and we move ADPs a little bit, not a ton, but like, if you start seeing Cooper Kupp on a fade list or end of first round list or something like that, maybe his 5th overall ADP starts to see him move back a couple slots. I'm terrified of Matthew Stafford. I said that. Last year, I was terrified. I had 0 shares of Matthew Stafford because of it. I also was a little unsure on Cooper Kupp because it felt like it would be very difficult for him to repeat the year that he had to be the number 1 overall pick. And then you add in the fact that Matthew Stafford wasn't throwing. They were giving him arm injections. They were limiting his snap counts, basically. And then what happened in the regular season? He got in there and he just couldn't throw the football. Arm was dead. Right. I worry about the arm being shot again here. Kupp's coming off of an injury as well. I don't know if Cooper Kupp's on my board. I'll let somebody else take that play.
Exactly. So next round starts with a handful of wide receivers: Devonta Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel. I will say this: Amon-Ra St. Brown is a very safe pick, but when you're doing these best ball, especially half PPR best ball drafts, I don't know if his upside is all that great. With his 7-yard ADOT, he got a ton of targets, 146 targets, still only had 1,161 yards. Guys like A.J. Brown, who, went in the first round of this one, but guys like that with fewer targets had like 1,500 yards,
Yeah.
1,400 yards. So just this particular format, if this were full PPR, I have no problem with Amon-Ra St. Brown in that group. In the half PPR format, I'm going for higher ADOT guys. I like the CeeDee Lamb and Garrett Wilson picks better. Deebo Samuel, you still in on him with the changes to that offense and the quarterback questions?
I wasn't in on him last year. You and I talked
Yeah,
about that. What do you did a great article, or I believe it was an article, comparing sort of Vegas totals to
right,
ADP, and Deebo Samuel was the only wide receiver at that ADP without 1,000-yard receiving projection.
right.
And they're like, oh, well, he's got the running upside. I'm like, you can't guarantee on the running upside. So now they have Christian McCaffrey. I don't think you can guarantee on that running upside that he had 2 years ago. And now there is a boatload of questions about who their quarterback is going to be. We think it's Purdy, but he's coming off arm surgery. They still have Trey Lance sort of floating around there. No, to me, Deebo Samuel is another fade for me. And to kind of go back a little bit, you mentioned A.J. Brown as sort of a comparison. Devonta Smith going 2 rounds later, I understand what A.J. Brown did last year with the 1,500 yards. And there was no bigger A.J. Brown fan than I was. I paired him up with Jalen Hurts in a billion leagues that I did last year. Devonta Smith's the guy that I want this year. I'd rather take Devonta Smith in round 3 than A.J. Brown in round 1.
I'll say the same thing for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. If you look at Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, when Dallas Goedert was healthy last year, A.J. Brown was getting 8 targets a game. Devonta Smith was getting 7.7. Is that worth 2 rounds of draft capital to you, John? I don't know.
Not
Not
to
to
me.
me.
Not to
No.
me at all. And Devonta Smith, you mentioned, has that field stretching ability. And that dude is a freak, right? Like electric speed, great route running, great hands. He's the best wide receiver to come out of that draft class for a reason. And they just paired him up with like another really good wide receiver in AJ Brown. I just feel like this season we may see Smith take that next level, and AJ Brown I feel like has sort of peaked. I think what we got last year probably the ceiling for AJ Brown, unless Jalen Hurts really explodes into throwing the football. But I'd rather, like you said, take Devonta Smith at round 3 than AJ Brown round 1. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they're a round difference. I get where you're coming from there as
Right.
well. I took Tyreek Hill in the first round of this draft. I was very skeptical of that Miami Dolphins room last year because we talked about it. 2 top 20 wide receivers, and then Tua was being taken as like QB 17. And
Right.
you're like,
Didn't add up.
something doesn't add up here. Well, what didn't add up was Tua was going way too late in drafts. He should have
Way too.
been way too early. I like both of those wide receivers. I think they could both be elite as long as that offense continues there. But to the point of the running backs and wide receivers tandem there, look at the back end of that first round, then into the second round, you see 7 wide receivers go, just 1 running back there, end of first, early second. Middle of the second round is where the running backs start coming off the board. Nick Chubb goes to Howard Bender. No shocker there. I take Tony Pollard in the second round. Then we see Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall finish the second round there, picks 22, 23, 24. Derrick Henry falling into the second round, I got to ask you again, why? He was an absolute beast last year. People doubted him. He was going way too late last year. You saw his ADP start moving up as we got closer to the start of the football season. He was moving into the middle of the first round, but he was end of first round for a lot of last year. Now he's end of second round for no reason that I can think of.
Yeah, and this is also half PPR. So
Right.
it's even his format. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't understand that. I don't see why, like Josh Jacobs as well. We're talking about in this format, Josh Jacobs was RB3, Derrick Henry was RB4. Like what am I missing with these
That's
guys?
Derrick Henry ran for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns and career best 33 catches, 398 yards. And he missed the game, right? They didn't play him in one of those games. So like if he played 17 games, he's probably looking at 400 plus receiving yards, maybe 40 catches or 35 catches, whatever like that. So ceiling involvement in the passing game, which was the biggest gripe, right? He's not involved in the passing game. He was, and he ran for 1,500 yards and had 13 touchdowns. So why exactly is Derrick Henry in the end of the second round? Josh Jacobs, to your point, career year rushing the football on a 1-year deal again, another prove it deal for him. Those feel like interesting values to me.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you got guys like Kevin Tompkins in here that are just never going to draft a running back at all, you know?
True.
So, and for me, I took Jalen. I was just doing the math. I was looking at the running backs and I was like, man, I like a bunch of these guys, right? So I took Jalen Waddle there, knowing that somebody I like would get back to me. I ended up with Ramondre Stevenson, who the Patriots didn't add a back in the draft like everyone thought they
All they
would.
signed was James Robinson, who is
Fine.
flamed out with the Jets and flamed out with the Jags now. So
Right. So it's like I love a bunch of these picks in this range. Obviously, Mark Andrews, the upside's there for him. But Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, and Devonta Smith, you're taking that quote unquote wide receiver 2 discount because they're wide receiver 2 on their own team.
yeah,
Well, we said it during the draft while it was happening. There were 5 teams that had 2 players in the top 20 for fantasy football, and all 5 of those teams were in there, and I don't see why they wouldn't be again with highly consolidated targets. So I'm down on that. I'm in. Chris Olave for next wide receivers off the board. Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf. I like all 3 of those guys as well. John, you took Calvin Ridley there. Walk us through that one because I know we like this player, but that's a lot of faith. That's a lot of faith in
yeah.
the guy.
Listen, I made that pick, and so we tweeted out like, "What do you think of the draft board?" And someone commented like, "Sheesh, Calvin Ridley in the 3rd round." Yeah. Listen, the last time he played a full season of NFL football, he had 90 catches, 1,300 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And that was part of an offense that threw like a record amount of times. I completely understand that, but he claims he's ready to go. He claims he's fully healthy. He's in great shape. He's been working out. And we love the progression of what we saw last year out of the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And Calvin Ridley, if he is as ready to go as he is a better wide receiver than they have on that roster right now. Nothing to take away from Christian Kirk or Zay Jones. Great season last year, guys, but like an alpha's now there. I was willing to take the potential chance there on him in that spot. So yeah, you know what? Maybe it was to make a little noise. Maybe it was to make a chatter and have a conversation as well. But I'm also okay with the player. People are taking him there. I think there's upside for him to be a round better than where he's being drafted right now. And I was willing to take the shot.
Yeah, I like it, man, because I sit here, my thought process at this stage of the game is similar to yours, where I say, who's the best wide receiver for a good quarterback? So I was getting teed up to take Ridley. Another guy, Amari Cooper, where I sit here and I say, hey, there's most people think Deshaun Watson's going to bounce back.
Yeah.
Why not take Amari Cooper there? We got a couple minutes here left, John. What are some other picks that you either liked or didn't like? I'll tell you right now one I didn't like. Greedo on the screen there. He's better boss, Matt Deutsch, our boss here. He knows I love Chigakonkwo. Reached for him 30 picks just to drive me nuts. That really, honestly, truly messed up my strategy.
Right.
So didn't love that.
Because I asked you, I was like, listen, Coop's through 9 rounds, no tight ends yet. Like, what's going on here?
I was waiting for my guy. He basically is like, in Super Smash Brothers where you play as Donkey Kong and you can grab guys and jump over the edge and kill both of you and them. That's basically what he did to both of our teams right there, because he reached a little bit too high on a tight end, but he took the tight end I needed for my build.
Yeah.
So he kind of smoked us both there. There weren't a ton of guys left I loved. I ended up taking Dalton Schultz, who has the opportunity, but he doesn't have the athleticism. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
I'll make one comment here. Again, we only got a minute or so left. We talked about it during the draft, but I took Dalvin Cook in the 5th round.
Yeah.
I if he stays in Minnesota and doesn't get moved, it's an absolute steal. Right? Yeah. Like, they're not going to play Alexander Madison over him. If he doesn't get traded, he's their lead back. 1,200 yards, potential 10 touchdowns, and 40, 50 catches in that offense. Why is he a 5th round running back? I don't understand. But sometimes the community knows, right? There's a reason why he's going here. If there's some sort of insight or thing that I don't know about, okay, but give me Dalvin Cook in the 5th round every single time I'm drafting.
I'll take him. I'll take Joe Mixon. Sounds like Joe Mixon's going to be there, man. So, so that'll about do it for us. You guys, if you listen to this, you went on Fantasy Alarm or go to @Fantasy Alarm on Twitter and see the draft board and you think we're a bunch of idiots, well, guess what? We're doing drafts with people. Go to Underdog and sign up with promo code Fantasy Alarm. The match up to $100, and then go over to the Fantasy Alarm Discord. We're going to change some things around today, create a best ball channel. We're going to start doing them with Fantasy Alarm members. Me, John, Howard Bender, Jim Bowden is going to join us for a few. We're going to start doing them with you guys. Yeah. And if you look at this board and you think you're better, get in there and we're going to talk trash. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you jump in with us. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. Right? Get in our Discord. Listen, sign up below, fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. 50% off, promo code NFL50 right now. You get a 7-day free trial. You get in our premium Discord. Coop and I are in there talking ball all day.
Yeah.
So I see all these, in chat here. Don't end with the stream. We're only here for an hour every Wednesday, but maybe we'll start coming on more, Cooper. As we get closer to football season, we got plenty more to talk about. So that's it for us. Get in the Discord, sign up, download the Better Sports Network app, free in your iTunes and Google Play Store. Coop and I will be back next week